The road to becoming a successful investor can be challenging if you can't predict the market. This is why a veteran global macro investor with more than 50 years of experience, Ray Dalio, researched the last 500 years of economic history. In this video, you'll learn how history will impact today's market and economy, which will help you better understand and predict future challenges. Throughout his 50 years of international investment, Ray Dalio has discovered that we are frequently astonished by events that have never occurred. This prompted the co-chairman and co-chief investment officer of Bridgewater Associates to research 500 years of history. He found trends brought on by economic upheaval, social change, and international conflict decade after decade.
The study, I needed to understand things that were happening to us. I'm a global macro investor, and there are things that are happening in our lifetimes that never happened before. The amount of spending, financed by debt.
His research, which he assembled for his most recent book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, has molded and influenced these concerns. Ray was interviewed on Davos's Meet the Leader podcast at the 2022 World Economic Forum annual meeting. He discussed how knowing the past might assist leaders in managing the current challenging period and better comprehending and foreseeing future issues. Ray discovered that many things that startled him did not occur in his life previously, but frequently throughout history. And these things include: 1. The monetization of the debt, which is impacting inflation, among other things, is currently taking place. The second thing is the degree to which there are internal disputes between leftist populism and rightist populism due to the greatest wealth and value discrepancies. The impact of the internal struggle is significant. The third factor is a struggle between numerous forces shown in the Russian-Ukrainian NATO war, the growth of a major power in the form of China, and the relative decline of the United States. As a result, there are several types of conflicts. For instance, when there is a great power competition and there aren't a global court or justice system, sanctions. Sanctions refer to economic battles that typically occur at certain times.
Right now, the U.S. is imposing sanctions. Sanctions it's a form of economic warfare, and it has a big implication for the dollar, right? Okay, now others are trying to get out of the dollar system. There's a dollar system that now is being changed.
For instance, a situation similar to the one occurred in Japan when the United States froze Japanese financial assets and imposed economic sanctions that prevented oil imports. Imagine that China had received sanctions. China accounts for 22% of imported manufactured goods in the U.S. We presume that to be true. We purchase Apple gadgets, Nike sneakers, and other items. Let's pretend for a moment that it didn't happen. Inflations and shortages would both occur. It would be pretty detrimental. Also, it may lead to considering tighter regulations. For instance, implementing capital regulations is not implausible. And when we observe these phenomena, they remind us of the internal divisions in World War II. Due to the economic climate at the time, populism on the left and populism on the right caused conflicts, ultimately bringing down 4 democracies: Japan, Germany, Italy, and Spain. We are currently transitioning to a climate where there is a greater allocation of ideological or political resources. So you're noticing more problems like trading limitations and so forth. You might observe currency exchange restrictions and other areas where those resources are used. This has a significant detrimental effect on the economy's efficiency and raises inflation. Hence, these 3 components operating in concert and how they do so logically explain how the machine functions. We wouldn't fully understand that unless we knew those historical patterns. Was there one statistic or truth from 500 years of history that caught Ray off guard? Well, history has that impact, you know. Was there anything in particular that caught his attention? The story keeps repeating that there is a new world order. A conflict between 2 opposing parties establishes the new domestic and global order. That side then triumphs. After that side has gained the victory, gained power, realized that war is a wonderful equalizer, and eliminated debts, a time of peace begins, usually one of wealth and peace.
Amount of internal conflict, the rise of great power in the form of China to challenge the existing world order, and so on, the alliances with Russia and all of that.
There is a cycle of rising living standards and wealth where no one wants to battle with the dominant power or return to the conflict. That is how the Industrial Revolution was. Such was the post-World War II era, and so on. It improves living conditions. But because money is not dispersed equitably, what it accomplishes is widening the wealth inequalities and the amount of debt. And when those economic discrepancies widen, different opportunities are also produced. For instance, people with more money tend to be more powerful and can better support their offspring. Hence, as you can see, three things frequently occur as a result. You are in a condition of excessive debt and suffer a financial loss. This indicates that you might accumulate debt even when there isn't enough money. How then do you settle the debt? Do you print money to have it paid back or repay it in physical currency? It begins to lose value. The decision between depression and an inflationary condition is often that more money is printed nearly every time in history, and every time when that choice is made. Similar to what we saw in 2020, there was a desire to produce money without limitations. For instance, it is what occurred in the 1930s, and it's both left and right-wing populism. Then, this was referred to as communism and fascism. But whatever it is a form of populism, and the two become incompatible contrasts. Due to these confrontations, four democracies, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Japan, turned into more authoritarian types of governments in the 1930s. Of course, there are also variations in strengths. You have the dominant power at the outset of the New World Order. For instance, the United States possessed 80% of the world's currency. Money back then was made of gold. It controlled half of the world's economy and had all the military might. With time, that disparity gets less. Competitions grow as the gap closes, and those obstacles arise as competitions grow. As Ray discusses the war and the inefficiencies of the government, how will life on the ground change maybe very shortly? How will our lives change over the following several years?
What's happening now is very relevant, is a guide to the past, is a guide to what's happening now. 1971 led to the inflationary period of the 1970s.
We will undoubtedly experience far higher levels of inflation and inefficiency. This may manifest itself in the shape of greater supply chain issues throughout the ensuing years. If there were capital restrictions in place, you wouldn't be able to transfer money outside of your own country, which may be the United States or another country. Alternatively, there could be limitations on how you can send money abroad. We come from a society where capital, products, and services could move freely, sort of a world is flat setting. In a world without such things, resources are distributed according to the flow of money and equal opportunity. We must be aware of the prospect of military action. For instance, Ukraine is having a problem. Escalation is a possibility, and it may take several forms in the military, nuclear, or other ways. Throughout the upcoming several months, we will learn more about this. The effectiveness of punishment is the second thing we'll learn over the next months. Can sanctions, which are currently the only distinctive American strength because the United States is no longer a preeminent military power in the same way, have the desired impact of shutting down or taking the required steps to prevent a victory for Russia? How will that influence how other nations act? Thirdly, we'll see how the various nations align. As I said, there are typically Axis and allied powers. Based on who is joining and why, we can already see this, and we'll soon see how much pressure the US exerts on other nations to choose a side. There are more conversations about choosing a side right now. You'll have to choose a side in some manner or another. We'll thus watch to observe how those teams are chosen. During the next 6 months or less, all of that will become increasingly clear. So, what is one specific action that investors like you and me can take to maximize these historical patterns and histories to traverse this new dynamic world successfully? By mixing uncorrelated assets, investors can reduce risk. Dalio strongly supports diversity. He specifically advises diversification over 15 or more uncorrelated investments to lower your risk to return ratio.
I'm big on diversification.
You're very big on diversification.
Knowing how to diversify well
is more important than almost anything. People don't understand this.
Is that an evergreen principle, you think?
Yes, that's an evergreen principle.
Interesting.
And the reason I'm saying that, the way it is, it's almost like a casino making its money.
Assets that are not connected do not move in tandem, either positively or negatively. For instance, there is little link between gold and the S&P 500. So a decline in the S&P 500 doesn't always affect gold's spot prices. Bridgewater portfolios have a wide range of assets, industries, and currencies. In addition, Dalio has acknowledged using cryptocurrency as a diversification tool. Secondly, on fully priced equities, investors should sell for a profit. Dalio does not just purchase and hold stocks. He favors selling pricey stocks for a profit and then reinvesting the proceeds. The portfolio is rotated, as he puts it. Undervalued stocks are fantastic investments because they represent firms outperforming their industry or the overall economy. And because you're a subscriber of my channel who has turned on the notifications bell, here are the top stocks that Ray Dalio wants you to hold on to. Number 1. Cisco Corporation. Number 2. Starbucks Corporation. Number 3. The Coca-Cola Company. Yes, you heard that right. Coca-Cola. This is the same stock the 6th richest man in the world, Warren Buffett, has held for a longer term, that's since 1988, and has earned him millions on his portfolio. Coke is succeeding from its dividend to its long-term goals. This reliable option is also a wonderful long-term investment addition to any portfolio because it has a low beta and should withstand an economic storm. Is it all about being a long-term investor? Ray Dalio is a long-term investor and is one of the top 5 highly paid people on Wall Street. The correlation between volatility and time reveals the benefit of long-term investing. Longer-term investments have less volatility than shorter-term investments. The longer you invest, the better your chance of surviving market downturns. So why don't you hold on to that stock and see yourself mentioned in the Forbes list of the richest people on Earth? Number 4. HCA Healthcare Stock. Number 5. iShares Core S&P 500 ETF. Number 6. Procter & Gamble Company. Number 7. iShares Core MSCI Emerging Markets ETF. Number 8. Johnson & Johnson. Number 9. PepsiCo Incorporated. Number 10. Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets ETF. And lastly, number 11. Walmart Incorporated. Ray Dalio is not simply another billionaire who offers his opinion on the stock market and economy. He is the co-CIO of the biggest hedge fund in the world, and he is letting his deeds speak louder than his words. According to Dalio, developing as a wiser and more capable investor requires having a well-diversified portfolio and being aware of your guiding beliefs. This set of guidelines for decision-making, or the recipe as Dalio refers to it, can help you weather difficult economic storms and aid in achieving your objectives, both financially and otherwise. In the end, none of it is new, according to Dalio, and the economy experiences cycles much like other aspects of life. We can be better equipped to deal with these economic cycles if we see and comprehend them. It's similar to a doctor seeing the same thing repeatedly. That provides you with the necessary perspective. Furthermore, this applies to coping with the current situation and is not only theoretical. In one of Ray Dalio's tweets, he said, "Everyone has assets and liabilities. Understanding one's flaws and successfully making up for them are the keys to success. Individuals who lack such capacity do struggle. So, what are your weaknesses? What are you not good at? Do you love procrastinating? My next video will help you know yourself better and break the cocoon that you might have created around yourself, hindering you from being a successful investor."